that, I'd like to call to order today's session of the Disabled Access Appeals Advisory Board. So if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. At this point, we take public comments. I don't have any cards. Are there any other? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the roll call. I have to read that. Please have the roll call, please.
Board members Phoenix,
Here.
Kelman, Nishiwat, absent, Lettenmeyer, absent, and Chair Gillespie.
Present. Okay, I'll try that one more time. So at this time is for public comments, and I don't have any cards. Are there any other public comments? Okay. So then we can head straight into the reports. So the first report will be, do we have curb cut? Okay, we can start with 5B. We can start out with the Thousand Oaks Teen Center expansion for an oral staff report by Ms. Elizabeth Perez.
Good afternoon, Board and Chair. I've been here before. I think most of you know me, Elizabeth Perez. I'm the Construction Project Coordinator for the City of Thousand Oaks. And today I want to talk to you about, the Teen Center expansion. And I'm going to go over to the map. Is this on?
No, I did not turn it on.
I think you all have this in your packets. This is the site plan for the Teen Center expansion, and let me explain what's going on out there. This is the existing Teen Center building, and it was built with a three-quarter size gym, so it was never quite a tournament-sized gym. It doesn't have a lot of spectator seating. So the proposed project is an attached, brand-new, full-size gym that'll accommodate bleachers for 200 people, and full court, half court practice courts. It also, I don't think you got the floor plan, but it has new restrooms, fully accessible, and a new lobby. And as far as accessibility, we still have the main entrance. You can go through the existing building on level into the gym, but we've also created a new entrance off to the west. And that will be accessible from a sloped sidewalk. It's going to be about 5%, so it is not a ramp, but a sloped sidewalk. And that'll get you into the new lobby and access to the gym. Also, our exterior fire exits, emergency exits, are all accessible via sloped sidewalks and ramps. And that second entrance is also accessible from the walk from the main entrance. So that's really it. If you have any questions, I can answer.
It seems to me that whenever we go to places like this for events, there's always women lined up for the bathroom, clear around the hallway or whatever. There's never enough women's restrooms. And unfortunately, the handicap restrooms are used by, of course, everyone. So you do end up waiting in long lines. Has this been taken into consideration?
All I can say is we haven't gone beyond the code. We typically, from what we're hearing from the teen center, this is kind of an odd comment from them, but they'd like less is more. They say the kids don't use them very often. So we did only put in the code minimum of restrooms. We didn't add more. So for adults attending, there's probably going to be plenty. In fact, depending how the teen center works it, they have their existing restrooms in the existing building, plus this whole new set of restrooms. So for a large event, I think we have plenty. The existing gym will probably use more for multi-purpose and smaller scale activities. So when there's a large one, I'm sure they're going to have both restrooms open. So that's how they will accommodate the larger crowds.
All right, thank you.
You said there'd be a half-court gym, right?
It's one large full-size tournament gym, and then it's going to be striped so that you could have two practice or smaller games going at the same time, depending how they use it, and it'll probably also be striped for volleyball.
So will there be actual games taking place there with spectators?
Right. The idea is that they already have that kind of thing going on now, but they feel they can utilize the facility more for more expanded tournaments because of spectator seating and because of a full-size tournament court. I don't think they get more of the high school age because they don't want to be playing on the three-quarter size gym. The younger kids, it's probably more acceptable. So they're kind of opening it up to more users this way.
What kind of seating opportunities have you made for people using wheelchairs or braces, crutches, that kind of thing, who wouldn't be able to ascend bleachers?
Right. There's plenty of room in front of the bleachers. I mean, that was one point, is that there's adequate space all around now, so that I'm not sure whether we will or if we have to actually designate a spot, but it's very open and there's lots of room, so I don't think we're going to have any challenges. It's not, the old gym, you were probably pretty packed to find a place to sit and stand and such, and now there's going to be lots of room for spectators. So,
And if there's a real game with real coaches and people sitting on the bench and everything, someone using a wheelchair wouldn't have problem getting past them to get to the bathroom and then back to their seat and so on?
no, I don't have the exact dimension, but like I said, it's not bleacher and then the inbound line. You know, we've got space there, so I don't think it'll be an issue.
Okay, thanks.
We always have to ask the question. So I see where I think when you say west, that would mean on the left side of this is where the disabled entry is. So in this parking area here, will there be designated disabled spaces?
We haven't changed the parking. It's planning is still actually reviewing it. There are currently 4 spaces at the main entrance, and we hadn't proposed changing that. So that's the current configuration, is 4 at the main entrance.
Understand that meets the code, but I would really ask if you could consider making something that's just located in a more proximal location to the disabled access. If possible, it would be great.
Sure, we'll look at one thing we could look at is if there's because we already have constraints of landscaping and other issues, is maybe moving out of the 3, maybe moving 1 or 2 to that side entrance. I still think the majority of the people are going to be coming in the main entrance, so I'd probably suggest just moving 1 of them. And if it's van accessible, that works more into the pattern of striping, and that might be an easy thing that we can do. Sure, we'll look at that.
Thank you. That's very fair.
That brings up another question for me. As the parent of a teen, I've done the drop-off and pick-up thing there before. Is there the possibility that parents waiting in line to get their kids at the end of a game or something will be, or dropping them off in the beginning, would be blocking access to those handicap spots?
You know, I haven't heard that that's been an issue because the parking lot's set up so that you can kind of drive through and around. So I haven't heard that it's an issue, and I don't believe that the layout would cause that sort of a problem. But we could certainly follow up with the teen center, and I could ask them if they've had any of those issues.
I was just thinking they might anticipate bigger crowds, more people, once it's expanded and once you add games and that kind of thing. So if you could just ask them if, were there a backup of more parents dropping off, more teens, would it ever cause restriction, cause access problems for those handicap spots? Thanks.
Okay, sure.
Are there any further questions? Okay, then I think it's a great project, and I'm really pleased that you're able to do this for the community. So thank you for coming and sharing the plans with us, and good luck on your project.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, then we can go forward. The next item on the agenda is 5C. I believe Dave will be making the presentation, and we have Mr. Roy Myers here to help us answer some of the questions as well. So Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet, there's some information supplied relative to the Ventura County Transportation Commission. It's information that staff was able to gather. Basically, just an overview of their activities related to disabled and senior citizens. Staff did attempt to arrange to have a representative from the VCTC at today's meeting. However, that was not possible. They did indicate that they would like to come at a future meeting, so staff will, if the board so desires, will attempt to have a representative come to a future meeting to discuss more in detail what programs they have related to the disabled and so forth. We did do a little bit of research and discovered that one of the programs the VCTC operates is an Unmet Transit Needs Program, which is an annual process. In your packet, there's a resolution for this year, which was just went into effect May 5th, basically describing the process that they go through, a public hearing process, and evaluation of needs, and so that information is in your packet. Not being an expert on their process, I can't really speak to too many issues. However, I did want to let you know that Mr. Myers is here, who is a City of Thousand Oaks transit employee, transit expert, and perhaps he has some comments that could augment what I've already presented.
Good afternoon. What we have is the Ventura County Transportation Commission has a full process on the unmet transportation needs. It starts in February. It goes through quite a few different committees and hearings open to the public. They do ask people to be specific, otherwise some of the questions we receive sometimes are, we need more transit. Well, that's not real specific. It's very broad. They can't be addressed. What they're looking for is you need a route on a specific location, or you want a specific bus stop. Those kind of things they can address. One of them that was addressed a number of years ago was a bus from Thousand Oaks to Simi Valley and Moore Park, tying those cities together. That's why we now have the Vista East that operates and has been operating now for almost 10 years. A few years later, we added Saturday service. And that's what comes out of these processes. Like I said, it begins in February. Usually the session is closed in April, and they do the resolution somewhere end of April or in May. Also, in your resolution, it talks about the ADA program. That program resolution was finalized in 1991. And was implemented in January of 1992. All transit agencies across the United States were to comply. What that said is, if you have a fixed route system, one, your buses will become wheelchair accessible, and you'll also have a parallel system that provides transportation for people who cannot use the fixed route system 3/4 of a mile on either side of your route. For the City of Thousand Oaks, that was kind of a meaningless thing for us because we operated the whole city limits in the past, and we continued that. And when we filed our report with the federal government, we filed it saying that we were not going to do the 3/4 mile, we were going to do the city limits, and they approved it. There's a number of programs that involved. One of them that came out of unmet needs and also was out of some other things was providing an ADA program. Not required by the federal government, but we decided it was something that was needed. It was in the unmet needs hearings, was providing a paratransit system to the other cities and connecting. And now we have, for the last about 4 or 5 years, we have connections between Simi Valley and Thousand Oaks Moore Park, Thousand Oaks and Camarillo. the person can actually go from Simi Valley, hook up with Thousand Oaks. We take them to the far side of Camarillo, and if they want to go farther, they could we tie in with SCAD access. So that's something that's come out of that unmet needs hearings. It's not required by federal, but it's something that was implemented. Some things that are in the future. Right now, there's a study. It's a dial-a-ride paratransit study that's going on countywide to see are we meeting all the needs? Is there something, or is there vacant spaces? What's out there? And to basically generate information on what we need or what we don't have. So, other than that, like I said, there's a number of things that are in the works, along with a new transportation center up at our new building at our transportation center that will be wheelchair accessible. I think you may have already seen the plans on that, or may have came across that. That's going to be under construction this year, and hopefully will be finished by the end of this year. It's going to be having an area waiting room so people can be out of the elements, whether it be rain, which we every once in a while get here in Southern California, but out of the sun. And we're also working on a shuttle that would go to the Kaiser Hospital area in Woodland Hills. So those are just kind of a brief things of some of the transit things that are coming up. I think I failed to let you know who I was. My name is Roy Myers. I'm with the City of Thousand Oaks, and I am the transportation analyst for the city. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to address them. Whether they be for Thousand Oaks or whether they be for VCTC, I do sit on the Transportation Commission, or the Transit Board.
Oh, I'm so happy to talk to you then.
Oh, okay.
I have a number of questions, many of which are born of ignorance. I'm just beginning to learn about this. Well, one of my questions was, who is the representative that sits on VCTC from the City Council for Thousand Oaks?
From Thousand Oaks, that's Dennis Gillette, the mayor.
Okay. All right. And so each city has more than just a city council rep. They also have a transportation rep, such as yourself?
Each city has a representative from their council. They're also, for technical reasons, we have a Transcom group, which is one of the ones I attend. There's also another one which the Public Works Director or somebody like Tom Pisa has attended. Quite a number of those meetings. That's for more of the public works end of it, where they're dealing with more streets and roads. Mm-hmm. There's a citizens group, which the unmet needs hearings have to, their findings go through their committee before they go to the final vote of the commission.
And that's the VCTC Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee?
That's it.
Okay. Can you tell me where, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll let you know, we do have 2 representatives on that from the City of Thousand Oaks, on that citizens group.
Can you tell me where the VCTC is currently on drafting their transportation vision for the future? They were talking about a 25-year-old vision.
Yes, that's going to take a little while to put that program together. There's a number of issues. They're also talking about roads and also transportation as far as transit systems, paratransit systems, dial-a-rides. It's not going to be an easy task. It's going to be a long-term program to put this together. We're probably looking at probably 6 months to a year before we finally get this whole package put together, because they're going to divide it into many groups, things that can be done fairly recent or fairly soon, and things that will be long-range programs, such as the 101 freeway and the 118 widening will probably be a number of years, 10 to 20 years down the road. So some of those will be put in the long-range plan, but they are working on putting these programs together, how they can find the funding, and how they aim to achieve these goals.
I do know about Dial-A-Ride. I think it's wonderful that somebody from Simi or Thousand Oaks or Newbury Park can get to Camarillo. However, the organization that I work with has people from this area and Simi Valley who would like to go further. They would like to go to Ventura, at least, for example. And we're talking some paratransit and people with brain injury who can't drive. And one of the issues that they run up against is it takes about 4 hours round trip. Say if somebody from Thousand Oaks wants to take a course in learning skills at Ventura College through their Education Assistance Center. You have to make 2 reservations, with Dial-A-Ride for there and back. You have to make 2 reservations with SCAT access for there and back. There's like a half an hour window at each end that they ask you to allow for, so you could spend up to an hour sitting at the Holiday Inn Express in Camarillo. And then Dial-A-Ride shuts down here in Thousand Oaks by 5, so you've got to leave Ventura by 3. It's a huge ordeal for them. So I'm hoping to have some kind of input, that our board perhaps could have some kind of input into devising more of a comprehensive public transit system, more like one-stop shopping, where we could have a transportation center in every city. And so someone in Simi Valley could go on one bus, train, light rail, whatever, and get to Ventura without having to jump through all those hoops. Has the city of Thousand Oaks considered anything like that, or would you or Mr. Gillette have any avenue toward making a suggestion like that at a VCTC meeting? Or do you have any suggestions about how to bring that up for public forum discussion?
Well, we'll just kind of work down some of your questions. One of the statements was, about making reservations with Thousand Oaks Transit or Thousand Oaks Dial-A-Ride first, and then also with the SCAT access. The way the program's supposed to work is you contact your local one, otherwise Thousand Oaks Dial-A-Ride. We will make the reservation we'll make the connection with access. Same thing for Simi Valley, Moore Park, and so on and so forth. It's easier between Thousand Oaks and Moore Park. We have the same contractor, but we meet up with SCAT access at the Holiday Inn at the far end of Camarillo, and we have to work with the other agency to get the availability, try to work that in. Ours is usually fairly flexible unless there's a day that's really heavy. But with that type of system, you have to make the reservations 24 hours in advance anyway. And also the other thing I want to mention was that yes, our Dial-A-Ride shuts down at 5 o'clock, but our ADA service does not. Our ADA service by federal law has to go the same hours as our transit, so we go to 7. So it is longer. But like I said, you have to have the reservation in. You can't call it on the same day.
Right.
The other thing, would there be a central type of a system? That's being looked at. That's part of that paratransit Dial-A-Ride study that's going on currently. They're looking at, is there a feasibility to have 1, maybe 2 dispatching systems for the whole county? I doubt we'll have one unified system throughout the county. We have too many cities that have developed their own systems. And so what you're asking the cities is to give up control of not only how it's provided, but how much it's going to cost. So, City of Thousand Oaks, yeah, we're probably amenable to that, but it's one of those things that you'd have to, just like when we originally set up this program to meet the other cities, the City of Thousand Oaks, we operate our Dial-A-Ride paratransit system 7 days a week. Camarillo operates 5 days a week. Simi Valley is 6 days a week. So we had to find a common denominator, which was the lowest, which became 5 days a week. It operates, and it only operates between certain hours because we had to find out who had the shortest hours. So, because the idea was not to impact any city or any program.
Yeah, I understand that. And I wasn't suggesting that every city and all the unincorporated areas get together, and I know that would be impossible. I just thought if each city could have someplace like a transportation center like we have here in Thousand Oaks, and there could be one system that could drop you, if you want to go to Ventura, it drops you at their transportation center, and then you access the individual cities' systems. I just see this as not only a smart thing for people with disabilities, but it would impact county residents across the board because it would decrease traffic and we'd have better air quality, and maybe some of the people who live in the more affluent cities who work in the affluent cities but can't afford to live here would have an easier way of getting here from somewhere else. So maybe my question is to Dave as well. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there's a way for this board to study the situation and make some kind of formal recommendation to our representative on the VCTC, depending on everybody's consensus, for something like that.
think it's certainly possible. However, we need to be more specific in what we're asking, I think, and make more specific recommendations. It's kind of new ground for the board, so if you would like to discuss it, perhaps during board comments, that might be appropriate, and we could go from there.
Okay, thanks.
One thing to add on that, to actually get a building in each area, one, you'd have to have the land and the money. The city of Thousand Oaks, we worked for quite a number of years to acquire the funding needed to, one, put in the transportation center, and then come up with additional federal funds to build the building. So some other cities, like, we'll take some of them, we'll just run down some of the areas where we have agreements. We meet LA Access at the old, and I still refer to it as the old Westlake Hospital. That's our meeting ground with them, because LA Access stays strictly to the 3/4 mile. So when you're dealing with a large jurisdiction like LA, they're going to stick real to the black and white of what the rule is. So it's 3/4 mile. So their transportation center would, if they built one, would have to be somewhere within that 3/4 mile. Moore Park, right now, they basically consider the rail station as their central location. Simi Valley just built their shopping center, the mall up there. That's now their transportation center. There's no building other than the shopping center, but that's where their transfer point is for all their systems. The Vista bus also goes in that same location. Camarillo is slowly kind of developing the rail system also where they're at. So there are some that's developing, but for us to meet up with SCAT Access, you play a lot of politics, because SCAT Access does not want to come into Camarillo, and Camarillo does not want to go outside their city limits. So we agreed that we would go to the edge of their boundary to meet up with SCAT Access. So our hub became the Holiday Inn. So, and I doubt there's, if Camarillo would want to build two different ones. So sometimes it becomes a little bit of a tough decision to make, because then you're not only deciding where to build one, you're also deciding how they can change their policy to allow certain things to occur. And from an outside, we'd be stepping on some toes from Thousand Oaks.
Well, thanks. I appreciate your information. I mean, it's good for me to hear everybody's point of view and how much there is to take into account. And I just hope the commission eventually tries to wrap their brain around all of this. But thanks for the information. It was really good.
I'd like to ask a couple questions while we have you up here.
Oh, okay.
On your buses, are they all accessible? How many of them are fitted with lifts, and
All of our buses are wheelchair accessible.
all of them?
Yes, and even the new ones we're in the midst of right now purchasing 4 additional buses. What is changing now is going from the lift type buses to low floor, and you're seeing that clear across the United States, where a ramp just folds out, and the wheelchair or where it be a walker can have an easier access into the bus. Some of the problems used to be the walkers. We thought real heavily about the wheelchair, getting them on the bus with the lifts, but the walkers really didn't feel like they needed that lift to come out, but it was hard to get up the steps. So now the industry is going to the low floor, and right now we have 2 low floor buses. The other 4 are the older buses. They were purchased in 1995, so they have the lifts. But the new buses will be the low floor.
Can you provide, I don't know if statistics are the right word, but on usage of these provisions? I mean, I have to be honest, when I've lived in more urban settings in the past, and I see all of our buses are all equipped, but I've been pretty disappointed by the amount of usage, actually, and I just wondered if that was your experience here.
The usage, if you're talking about the general public, it is increasing. We're increasing, the last few months has been about 30 to 40% increase in ridership.
I'm sorry, I meant how many people are taking advantage of your accessibility that you have built in, be it through a lift or a lower floor, as you had described?
That's also, I don't have the numbers, but we do track that, and it is increasing. The numbers are going up, not rapidly, because in fact we have a paratransit system that pretty well covers a lot. It's a little nicer to go door to door rather than from a bus stop to bus stop.
I think that's where I'm headed, and I'm trying to determine, clearly you've made the decision that all of your buses are going to be accessible, and I'm wondering whether, just out of curiosity, if we were starting from square one now, whether you could meet the requirements by having a more beefed up paratransit system, just because clearly it's better service, and I'm just somehow wondering, I imagine it's not cheap to equip all of these vehicles, and I bring that up just because I just don't see them used very often, and I wondered whether that was ever a choice or whether you had to do it that way.
Well, under the federal law, you're required to make your buses wheelchair accessible. So there wasn't a lot of choice on that one. But why we went with buses versus, equipping all of our buses, if there wasn't the regulation, we'd still go that way because of the fact that the dial ride is very expensive. It's running me about $6 per passenger to put them on a fixed route bus. It cost me over $14 to put them on a dial ride. So you can tell there it's twice the price to carry that same passenger.
Okay. I never had seen the numbers. I just sometimes wondered if, I had no idea. I think once I heard a figure of how much it costs to retrofit an existing bus, and it was quite high. But I guess probably if you're getting them manufactured that way, maybe it's more reasonable.
The prices have come down over the years as buses now come off. That's the way they're built with wheelchair accessibility.
Sure.
Especially that's why, like I said, clear across the United States, there's not a city anywhere, whether it be New York City or whether it be a small system like ours, that's not going to low floor. So it's a nationwide program because, one, the low floors, the equipment doesn't break down, and if it does, the ramp can be manually put out and folded back up, where the old lifts could not. You had to crank those, and it took quite a bit to get those cranked up. So there's a lot of reasons why they're going to low floor. It's more accessible even for the general public, rather than going up those real steep steps. Makes it much nicer. To give you an example, we carry a lot of women that have wheelchair or have strollers. It's easier to get those on the bus than trying to figure a way to lug the stroller up the steps.
Great. Okay. When we had our presentation about the transportation center, one thing that I took out of that I thought was great was the idea that there could be airport service, and I wondered whether you could give an update, that not necessarily having to do with our board, but just in general. Is that going anywhere?
We're still working on that. One we've been talking to in the past, and we will continue to speak with them, is the Santa Barbara Airbus. They're about the only bus type to LAX from this area. The rest of them are more your shuttle type of vehicles, like your Roadrunner and those. But Santa Barbara Airbus, their comment to me was they only go to places where there is a waiting room that's out of the elements, someplace a person can actually wait. And they said if we would build a building where they could come and the people could be out of the elements, the person said put in a reservation that they would strongly consider stopping here.
Great. And my last question has to do with, and I apologize, I don't remember exactly what you called the hearing that you have annually to try to gather public concerns and requests for information. What was that called?
It's called the Unmet Transportation Needs.
Right.
And Unmet Transit Needs.
And how do you go about getting word out to the public that you're having this? Because, to be honest, I'd never heard of it before.
VCTC, they put ads in all the papers. They usually have some also on radio, both in English and Spanish. They hit some of the main Spanish stations. And then at the major bus locations, we put up flyers that are both in English and Spanish regarding the meetings and when they'll be held. They've always been held in Camarillo. Every once in a while we had some satellite ones. We had one here a number of years ago. Unfortunately, we just didn't get the turnout so we reverted back to just going to Camarillo.
It appears that you've done due diligence, and it's my fault for not knowing, but I think that's great. I guess my concern is always that, you can work so hard, but if the people don't know, then you don't have much. But maybe I should start spending more time reading the local papers and be more up to date. So those are the only comments that I have. Gloria, did you have anything? Wonderful. Well, we've kept up there longer than we usually keep people, so we can let you quit unless you have something further you'd like to say. I really appreciate you coming out. I think it was wonderful.
No, if you have any other additional questions, you can always call my office. We also, the website, we're very proud we've just come up with a new website. We have a contractor who designed our new logo. TO Transit's in kind of a transition phase right now. We're phasing in a new, what they refer to as branding. We're going into a lot of advertising, marketing. So you're going to see a lot more the word out there about Thousand Oaks Transit in the future. We're trying to work with VCTC to kind of combine our efforts on marketing. So it seems to be, I'm hoping it's going to pay off. It looks very positive. So again, though, if you have any questions, or if anybody has any questions, I'm amazed how many people that don't know about the dollarized and paratransit systems we have clear across the county. That's not just to mention Thousand Oaks, but also in other places. And a lot of people don't know how to obtain a ADA card. I use a lot of acronyms, Americans with Disabilities Act card. And so it's in all the sites we have tie-ins with it, and it shows how to acquire that card. And Sue Mundy is the contact at VCTC. So thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you. Before we close this section, though, we had, unfortunately, we were unable to get Ms. Monday to come and meet with us, and she has said that she'd be willing to come at a later date. Now, in light of the discussion we've already had, I'd just like to ask if anyone on the board would be interested in asking her to come at a later time, or whether we're satisfied with the information that we have.
I guess I feel like Mr. Meyer was really complete in his information. I mean, I still have issues I'd like to bring up during board comments, but I think your presentation was great. You answered all my questions.
I agree. Gloria, okay? Wonderful. Okay, with that then, I think we can go back. We can put 5C to rest and go back to 5A. Mr. Tom Pisa can give us a curb cut construction status report.
Thank you, Chair Gillespie and board members. You have our accessibility projects update memo in your packet. I would like to highlight the CI 4520, and this was the TDA Article 3 2006-2007 Bicycle Pedestrian Fund project. And we did find out on was announced on May 9th that this, which is also a Ventura County Transportation Commission function, did award all the grants that were requested for this particular year's application process, and the city will receive $54,000, as was requested, for a project that includes installing sidewalks on Lynn Road and on Reno Road. So that's good news coming from that side. We also have a sidewalk construction project that we plan to award on June 13th, and that should start construction this summer. Include sidewalks on Borchard Road, Avenida de los Flores, and Avenida de los Aberles. And also we are working on design for projects on Moore Park Road sidewalks and also on Westlake Boulevard. So I'd like be glad to answer any questions if you may have.
I'm going to throw you a curveball today.
Okay.
And I'm going to comment on 4520. On your discussion of the missing sidewalk on Lynn Road, that's great. One part of Lynn Road that I've personally noticed that I think could really use some sidewalk is between Hillcrest and the 101 freeway. And I don't know whether there's any reason why there's not one there. There's a bridle path on one side of the road but there is no sidewalk on either side between Hillcrest and the freeway, and wonder if there's any plans to ever do such a.
I'll check into that. I know that there is a development project currently. It's at the old Racket Club Villas, and I don't know if they have been conditioned to install sidewalks on that side, but I do know that that area we have looked at in the past, and I think possibly it hasn't proceeded because of the potential of development on that area. So,
I think it'd be useful because now you can either walk on Lynn Road or walk on the bridle path.
Right.
Neither one is a really very good option.
So I will look into that and get you back information on that also. Okay.
Did any other board members have any comments on item 5A?
I just have a potentially random question. How much money was available, and what happens to the money that doesn't get used, that no one applies for?
I think there was approximately $400,000 available, and I believe most of it had been allocated. There may have been a small amount, but I believe it just returns to the fund balance for a following year's usage.
Okay, then, if there's no further comments.
I do have one thing I'd like to share with you, and this is something that I'm not sure. It's one of those things that may not be well advertised, but this has to do with Wheelchairs to the Sea, and this is an event that takes place about twice a year. This was on May 13th, and it involves this year there are approximately 35 individuals in wheelchairs, as well as a number of other people that were somewhat impaired in being able to hike on trails and things, and probably twice as many or 3 times as many volunteers. And this is quite an event. It's about a 4-mile hike over a trail down down Sycamore Canyon to the ocean, where there's a barbecue, and then everybody is bused back to where we start. So this is related to accessibility on a very difficult trail, but it was a really enjoyable day, and it's sponsored by a number of nonprofit organizations locally. And this has been going on for, I understand, about 20 years or so. So a very, very fun event.
That's wonderful. I wonder, can you tell me where that appeared, if we wanted to look at that article?
This was in the local newspaper. I'd rather not give a specific plug, but yes, a local newspaper. I can mention it to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay, then, with that done, we can move to Section 6 board comments. Any board comments?
Surprise, I have one. So, Dave, if the board wanted to convene or wanted to come up with some kind of proposal or recommendation to give to Mr. Gillette and Mr. Meyer or whomever would serve on the VCTC regarding accessibility for people with disabilities to be taken into account during the formation of this transportation vision for the next 25 years. How would we go about doing that?
Well, I think you recognize that Mr. Myers was quite knowledgeable about the program. So I would suggest perhaps a subcommittee of the board could meet with staff, Mr. Myers, and perhaps some other representatives from staff, and develop some kind of a recommended program that they could bring back to the whole board to look at a future meeting, and let the board decide if they want to proceed with that, and then go forward from there. That would be my suggestion.
All right, then may I move that we form such a subcommittee as suggested by Mr. Huner.
I think it's a good idea, and I'll second that movement. Okay, then. So what would be the process then for forming a subcommittee?
Well, I would suggest the chair might ask for volunteers, perhaps two.
Okay, volunteers?
Another surprise. I would do that.
Yes, I'll volunteer.
Wonderful then if we could form a subcommittee to investigate options with VCTC with board members Phoenix and Kelman.
Very good. And staff will be in contact with the board members to arrange for an initial kickoff meeting and go from there.
Thank you very much. Additional board comments?
I just have to say, I love it when we ask for information and the next meeting it's there. Staff does a wonderful job providing us with information and answering our questions and working with us, and I really appreciate it.
Okay, then.
Thank you very much.
Staff comments? Okay, then. It sounds like we've gone through our agenda and completed the business that we had before us today. So with that, I would like to adjourn this meeting until we meet again on July 26th of this year.